Hey guys, welcome back to Fourth Wall Reactions. Today, it's time to take a look back at Series 6 of Doctor Who. You guys know that I'm further ahead on Patreon than I am on YouTube, and when I do the series reviews, I actually don't take the time to edit them for Patreon, so patrons will be seeing these for the first time along with everybody else. I also don't stop recording episodes of Doctor Who, reactions to them, in order to do these. So right now, as I am recording this, I am already into Series 7. I've already seen the Christmas special and the first 4 episodes. So I kind of feel like I really don't like to do these look backs so late, but it's just kind of how it works out. It's really nothing to do with anything other than to give context if I, forget little details. But I have gone back and taken a second look at certain things just to refresh myself. So I feel like, particularly now with Moffat, it's very helpful to be sort of on the other side of the series, taking a look back once everything sort of comes together and makes more sense. I kind of, now with Moffat at the helm, I'm watching sort of with this blind trust that things will be explained, things will come together. I like take the hints and say, okay, well, hopefully by the end of this series, I will know what that's about. Because Series 5 did that so well. But I want to start out talking about Series 6 by saying, this is the first series of New Who that I've experienced that has the same major players, has the same actor playing Doctor Who, and it has the same companions. That has never happened in the last 5 series. So I think this series for me was a lot of, familiarity, particularly since there were some through plot lines, things that still had yet to be wrapped up and explored. And so it felt very tied to Series 5 in that way to me. And I liked not having to get to know somebody new just yet. Like we've had, I got Rose for 2 series, although it was split between the 2 actors playing the Doctor. And because it was not only Amy on the TARDIS, it was Rory with 2 companions and all the complex dynamics that they had between each other, between the 3 of them. I just thought it was really great to just still have that continuity. So that's one thing, the first thing that I really appreciated about Series 6. Looking back on this series, it really strikes me this juxtaposition of, the whole mystery kicking off the thing at the beginning was in the Doctor's death. Death, air quotes. So you knew from the start that it was gonna be about that, sort of unraveling this mystery right off the top, and it was not the same Doctor as like a 200-year difference. Like this was not the same Doctor. So you knew that was going to be kind of part of the mystery of figuring out the Doctor's death. And throughout the series, that the death theme was directly juxtaposed against sort of the birth of River Song. When you finally find out who the hell she is.
The only water in the forest is the river.
I'm really glad that was not spoiled for me. You find out who she is. You find out who her parents are. You do kind of sort of, you do see her birth. I mean, you don't see the actual birth, but Amy is pregnant in the thing, in captivity. Then there is Melody Pond. And you get a brief overview of her life. So I found that whole theme of just these 2 forces that are always drawn together, but one is telling the story of a birth and a life, a becoming story, and the other one is sort of kind of telling a death story. We'll get to that. And a lot of the episodes did have at the heart of them a parent-child relationship in sort of the guest characters. You had the Curse of the Black Spot. You had the pirate and his son. You had that dynamic. Night Terrors was all about that, pretty much. the Almost People had the one character. I mean, it was about a lot more than that, but they explored the relationship between a father and son at a distance, and then, is his ganger flesh replacement, stepping into that role. Closing time with Craig and the newborn. And if you count the Christmas special at the very beginning, which I do, I think in the Series 5 review, I kind of included it because I had already seen it. And so maybe I mentioned it in the Series 5 review. I can't remember. But certainly if you include A Christmas Carol in that, you have, sort of the relationship between Kazran and his father and how that influenced him. So this overall theme of parent-child relationships and the death of the Doctor and the birth of River Song. It's just really fascinating to look back and see how that was all sort of organized and interwoven. It was really fascinating. It's not something that I was consciously thinking about as I was watching it. It's like, that's why it's always good to look back. And even to an extent, the Doctor, he'd met Amy as a child, and I know that last series, in Series 5, I always said that I felt like he kind of always saw her as that. It's a little weird that she is now his mother-in-law. What? Last series was sort of the story of Amy and Rory, growing up and letting childhood go. And I don't know if the Doctor ever really sees her as a grown-up. So with all the general themes, I'm going to dive into some characters. And of course, first and foremost is the Doctor.
They gave me a badge with my name on in case I forget who I am.
Because even though I think his arc ran neck and neck with River this time around, like River Song had an extremely important, strong arc. It was kind of the season of River Song, which for me works because I really love her. I can understand if River is not your favorite character, or, just the amount of time devoted to her might have struck people the wrong way. But for me, I really love her, so I'm fine with all of it. But the Doctor had to sort of kind of come to terms with like the inevitability of death, even though he cheated it once again. I'm always... When I went back and rewatched the first two-parter and noticed that when he was shot initially, he did start to regenerate, and then he was shot again, and then that was it. So we get to the end, and when he used the robot, the Doctor robot... I love the Tesselector. Anyway, he used the Doctor robot to be a stand-in. Of course, he was in there manipulating this robot. I wonder, because a robot would not be able to regenerate, I'm wondering if in fact that first episode was a real death for him. Because certainly the robot... Tesselecta would not be able to regenerate. I don't know if that's dealt with in Series 7. I don't know if that's dealt with in the future. I don't know if it is a running debate in the Doctor Who community. I have no idea. But from what I saw, that's what I'm taking away from it, is that the first time around... he started to regenerate and was killed. Second time around, he used the robot stand-in and basically he changed time. What do you think? Is that what I'm getting from this? Anyway, if not, end result is the same. He is back. He did not die. So that is my takeaway from the mystery of the Doctor's death. And he also had some really life milestones, like getting married more or less hand-fasted with River. And then at the end, sort of letting Amy and Rory go their way. I do feel like because the Doctor had met Amy as a child, he's always kind of seen her that way. and been very protective of her in a very parental way. Not getting into the bizarre, twisted family tree that is the Doctor and River being the daughter of Amy and Rory. So other than wanting to keep both of them safe and have them not be on the TARDIS full time, I think it was sort of, this progression of letting your grown children go their own way and do their own thing and have their life. And as always, regardless, I think it's really difficult for the Doctor to genuinely love people who he will always outlive. And how bittersweet that is. So, he had quite an arc this series. The performances I really loved. I really do enjoy Matt Smith's performance as the Doctor. I don't know. I just cannot make judgments of, who I like best. and I haven't seen, I think I need to see until, his last, I don't know how long he stays as the Doctor, please don't tell me. But I think at that point, maybe I'll be able to make a call. I don't know. I hate choosing between, because so far I've really loved everybody that's portrayed the Doctor. So yeah, I think the Doctor had a really interesting arc this series. I really love Matt Smith's performance, as always. Now, River Song.
This is River Song back in her cell.
This really was the season of River Song, or the series of River Song, I should say. I was definitely shocked to hear the origin story. And being on the other side of it and looking back, going back and rewatching the first episode, they really don't take a whole lot of time to explain every single step of how she got where she got. But you're given enough clues that you can understand her progression. And I maintain that it's always tough when you have a very, very colorful, interesting, fascinating, supporting character, which she is a supporting character. I think in either Series 4 or Series 5, I kind of likened her to a Captain Jack kind of figure, just very charismatic and mysterious, and just a lot of fun to watch, both in the performance and in the writing, just being a really engaging character. And it's always kind of a little dangerous to have that kind of character around because you don't want them pulling so much focus from your leads. But I think because her existence is so interwoven, much more so than Captain Jack's, so interwoven with the Doctor's life, with the Doctor's life and Amy and Rory's lives. I don't think that having so much focus on River this series was at all inappropriate or overpowering or drawing focus. It's not only telling her story, it's telling Amy's story, and it's telling Rory's story, and it's telling the Doctor's story. So to me, everything fit in really perfectly. I think the thing that threw me for a loop the most, of course, was Let's Kill Hitler. I don't know how the little girl in the astronaut suit found her parents and grew up with them as peers. Who knows? But, it just made for a really crazy, interesting story. Very entertaining. And what a bizarre relationship to have with your parents. Her whole story, this series, was one of the biggest highlights for me because I always wanted to know more about her, and now I feel like I know enough. I don't think she would be River. You want the mystery of River Song to continue. I don't think River would be River without a little mystery, a little intrigue. So I hope actually they don't explain every single thing about her. And I always like when she pops up unexpectedly. So hopefully that will continue to happen. I'm sure that somewhere out there's some sort of timeline video done like from River's perspective, like showing her life. But I feel like even though this told her story and kind of got her to the place where we would meet her back in series 4. All this jumping around. I feel like we still, her timeline is open enough that we could still run into her from time to time. And I hope that's true, because I really love her. Very much enjoyed River this series. Now, as far as Amy is concerned...
Amy Pond.
Well, as far as Amy and Rory are concerned, it gets a little murkier. I think that their arcs are not as fully explored as both the Doctor's and River's were. I think because the Doctor's and River's arcs were explored to that degree that maybe Amy and Rory's arcs suffered just a little bit. Because last series was very much about, Amy really taking that final step and committing to Rory and Amy's choice. Really committing to him and getting married and taking that step. Obviously, this series was about her, becoming a mother. But that experience was really stolen from her, which she reiterates in the season finale, in that sort of time overlap before she kills Madame Eyepatch. And I think that Amy really went through a lot this series. She went through so much. But a lot of it we kind of didn't get to see because of the first handful of episodes, unbeknownst to us, it was Flesh Amy, Ganger Amy. Not the same thing. So we kind of didn't really get that. We got to see her emotional response in Good Man Goes to War when her child is taken from her. I wish that they'd been able to explore her journey a little bit more subsequently in the latter half of the series. Just what it is to, have a child, but lose the child, but without really losing the child. She knows that River is her daughter. At least she knows that she's alive. And yet, she doesn't get to raise her. She doesn't get to share time with her in that way. And then at the end of the series, they have this odd connection where, yes, I am your biological mother, but you are like physically a being that is older than I am, kind of, sort of. That what she regenerated into is an older person. Like, how do you have a mother-daughter relationship like that? It's so odd. I don't dislike that at all. I actually really like that idea. But I do wish that we were a little more in Amy's head as far as, like, how does she suss this stuff out? How does she reconcile herself with it? I really don't know. I'm very interested in that. So I really do love the Amy story that we got. But I did want a little bit more. Because that would just be such an odd life experience. And Rory.
It's Rory.
I really do love Rory. I wish that he was given kind of the same way I wish that we explored, Amy's feelings a little bit more, in particular regarding her daughter. I do wish that Rory was explored a little more, that we got to see a little more of what's inside his head. However, I find Rory to be a very endearing, very consistent character. I really love his relationship with the Doctor. It's very much a brotherly relationship, which is odd to say given that he's the Doctor's father-in-law. Although the dynamic could still apply, I guess, because it's a relationship of great affection and annoyance all wrapped into one. So that could lend itself to a father-in-law, son-in-law relationship. I think that he's a very consistent character. He reiterates his love and loyalty to Amy in a variety of situations, no matter what weird reality they are put into. He doesn't waver. And I like that. I really enjoy his character. And there are a lot of little moments of like consistency and of his helpful nature, like when he was reaching out to help the ganger. Yeah, I could have done with a little more Rory. But, you only have 13 episodes, and so much of it was about either the Doctor or River. So it all is understandable. So I feel like even though River Song is technically not a main cast character, her story really dominated the whole series, and but it made sense. So anyway, now as far as some of the episodic characters that came and went, some of my favorites were the TARDIS in human form.
They put me in here.
I loved that episode. I really loved the concept of that, and I kind of wish that she had stayed in human form a little while longer, except of course they need the TARDIS to travel, so I mean she can't be in human form too long. But that was a really lovely episode, an exploration of that concept. I don't know why, guys, but I loved the Tesselecta. I don't know why.
We should go into surveillance mode. Agreed. Let's fight.
Just the concept of this like group of people who are somewhat mercenary in nature, taking it upon themselves or being contracted to or asked to hop around through history and do the things that they were doing. And they had this miniaturizing technology and the robot thing. I don't know. I have no idea why that concept was so appealing to me, but I just loved them. I mean, because it's so crazy. I don't know. I don't know why. But I did. I don't think I have to figure out why. I just love them a lot. And I was glad that they played a big role in how the series was wrapped up. I kind of like that this series also gave you options in that, because you also had the flesh people, the gangers. I think for a brief moment, now I can't remember which episode it was, but I thought, what if it is because they kept replacing, Amy was replaced by Ganger. The baby was replaced by Ganger. So I thought maybe they would do that. Maybe it was just in the finale itself that I thought that like, are they going to go the Ganger route? Is that how we're going to avert the Doctor's death? Because I know that can't be it. But I'm glad that my robot people came into play. I just love them. I love the concept of the flesh people, the gangers. I think the actual episodes they were in, I think I had some issues with them, but I really loved that concept. And we had a lot of great character appearances in A Good Man Goes to War. I have some thoughts about that episode, which I really loved. As far as sort of all the characters popping up, like, Mr. Pirate Man comes back, the Silurian and her partner, who else? But all the people who showed up, I kind of wanted more of them. Like, that went by really fast, and I love that they all were there, but I wanted more. I admit it. I'm greedy. I wanted more. So just a lot of really great sort of episodic characters that showed up and had a role to play. Oh, and of course, the return of James Corden.
Doctor, please.
No, you shush.
Which I understand from people that actually Matt Smith and James Corden are friends in real life. So I really like that they have this rapport with each other. They play off each other really well. So it was really lovely to see Craig again. I'll always be happy when he shows up. So a lot of great episodic characters. As far as sort of adversaries go, I think this is the first New Who series that did not feature any Daleks. Or if it did, I think it featured one very briefly. Like at the beginning of the finale, yeah? Or at the beginning of one of them. But there was no Dalek-centric episode, which I was very surprised by, because I thought they were would appear. Well, I guess that one appearance does count as an appearance. I guess I just figured there would be a Dalek story every series, but I didn't miss it. I don't dislike Daleks, but you guys, if you've watched with me up until now, you'll know that, the Dalek episodes for me are kind of hit or miss. Like, they have to do something really innovative and creative with Daleks. But I do believe that that's a first. No Dalek episode. As far as the silence and all the toadies that served the silence, like the eye patch people, Madam Eye Patch.
Here it comes.
I really loved the silence in the episodes that they really played a role. The first two episodes, the first two-parter. They were very creepy. I was surprised that they were wrapped up so quickly. I really was expecting them to come back in a big way. And they kind of did at the very end when all the timelines overlapped with everything, which was kind of fun. I just thought that they would be playing kind of how the Crack last series was a fairly consistent reappearing thing. I kind of thought the Silence would be that as well. I'm a little surprised I didn't get to know more about them and know what is their beef with the Doctor. Now maybe that is being saved for another series. I don't know. I could have done with a little more from Madam Eyepatch as well. Like, where is she from? Who is she? What does she do? I don't know. I expected a little more of that and I didn't get it. But yeah, I just thought, I guess was expecting a little more from them. I don't know what I was expecting though. Just more. So for me, this series ultimately was a little more sort of standalone than the last series, which really wove in the series-long arcs throughout most of those episodes. And this, I feel, other than the river stuff, as far as the Silence and all of that, they're far more standalone. With sort of the series-long antagonists not kind of being around a lot, I think this series really relied a lot on each individual episode's kind of adversaries. They had a great one in the God Complex. That was crazy. And a lot of like odd realities. The Girl Who Waited or Night Terrors, kind of getting sort of sucked into those odd realities, even to an extent, the Doctor's wife. So, more so than actual like creatures or people that were out to, conquer the world or conquer Earth, it was very personal. Like they were always getting kind of sucked into weird situations and trying to have to like figure their way out of them, which was enjoyable. All of these things to me made Series 6 really actually quite different than Series 5, which is kind of something else when you think, okay, but this is the first series that has the same Doctor and the same companions and some, hanging chads, some leftover issues from the last series. And yet it was very much its own thing. And really enjoyable in its own way. I really had a lot of fun with it. Now I get to my episode spectrum. If you've watched with me before, you'll know that I can't pick favorites to save my life, but I do tend to clump things together in the episodes I really, really loved, episodes that I thought were like really good, but maybe not my favorites, and then ones that were like, they were good. I rarely have ones that I hate. To me, Doctor Who is such a fun show. With me, I guess, I haven't had a like, oh my God, I hate that episode response to things. Some things don't hit with me. Some characters don't hit with me. But ultimately, I almost never rank anything like really low. So, my favorite episodes this series, in no particular order whatsoever. I really loved the Doctor's wife, primarily because of the main concept of the TARDIS taking human form. I think the B plot with Amy and Rory was interesting and creepy, but that main storyline was just great. I really loved that quite a bit. And like I've already said, would be fascinating to explore more of, except that, we need the TARDIS to take him around. I really love the God Complex. That was freaky deaky, but very clever, very psychologically creepy. A lot of really great supporting characters. I mean, Rita was fantastic. The guy, I'm forgetting his name, but the guy in the makeup, he was great. That was a really fascinating episode. I really loved that. I loved A Good Man Goes to War and Let's Kill Hitler. I know they're not a two-parter connecting like that, but to me, because the themes and the issues surrounding River Song and the reveal of A Good Man Goes to War leading into Let's Kill Hitler. They're kind of linked in my mind, even though I know it's not a two-parter. In A Good Man Goes to War, obviously, the big payoff towards the end of the episode. And, the reveal about Amy, which happened in the previous episode, but you get the payoff in this one where she's actually given birth and is bonding with the baby, but the baby is actually a ganger and is already gone. Just a lot of the twists and turns in this episode. I loved a lot of the characters coming back. I don't know what the headless monks were. Just so many elements. Finding out that Amy and Rory's baby was conceived on the TARDIS, and kind of that's how it was influenced with Time Lord energy, I guess. All of that storyline was so great. I love the appearances and the characters that came back. I almost wish A Good Man Goes to War had been a two-parter, but I feel like the individual character storyline, it was fine for a one-episode thing that worked for me. And then just the larger scale of the going to war and having all the other characters show up, I wish had been maybe a two-parter. But I was still fine with what I got. I really love that episode a lot. I know from Patreon that Let's Kill Hitler is perhaps a divisive episode, maybe? It was very Moffat-y. Of course I have to love Let's Kill Hitler for the robots. With Tesselecta, whom I fell in love with, and I don't know why. But also a lot of the reveals of River and the connectivity between Melody Pond and River Song, and the weirdness of her growing up with her parents as peers. I really loved it for all the information that I got. I loved it for the characters. I loved it for the performances. It was just incredibly exciting and engaging. Really loved it. Lighting. I love The Girl Who Waited. I do feel like the Amy-Rory dynamic has been explored a lot, and that this is maybe one of the episodes that could have given way more towards the exploration of how Amy was feeling about, her motherhood having been robbed, really. That whole issue, because we have explored the Amy and Rory dynamic so much, and yet I love that episode really for Rory's character, as far as the fact that he loved any version of Amy, regardless of how old she was, and wanting to save both of them. That whole thing was just, I was very moved by that episode. So that ranks up there. And I know this may raise a lot of eyebrows, but I had so much fun with The Curse of the Black Spot. Is it Doctor Who's finest episode? Probably not. I think part of my just pure enjoyment of the episode was that I was finishing up reactions to Black Sails at the same time. And a lot of my love of that show and the pirate lore and just all of the stuff that was happening over on that reaction part of my brain probably amplified this episode a lot for me. It was just fun. I loved the fun spirit of it. It was just one that I enjoyed a lot. Partially for reasons that had nothing to do with Doctor Who. So, there is that. But I have to put it up in my favorites of this series because I had so much fun with it. So, those are my top 6 that I really loved, really enjoyed, would watch again anytime. Close behind that group are the opening 2-parter, The Impossible Astronaut and The Day of the Moon. I really loved that it had to do with Nixon and the NASA and the silence and just everything, all these elements that came into play at various parts of the whole series. I think because in those first 2 episodes, there were so many questions that were set up to be answered later. I think my experience of watching those first 2 were not as strong as the episodes that came later. I can say that having gone back to rewatch those episodes, just from a review standpoint, prepping for this, and going back to look at it again once I had seen the finale, I think I appreciated them a lot more on the second watch. So at the current time, I might put them in my top episodes of this series. But just as far as how I experienced the series, they were just not quite in the top group. But they were really good episodes. And I really love everything that they set up. And just the creepiness of the silence and all that stuff. In the same sense, of course I love the series finale, the wedding of Riversong, and just sort of the coming together of all the stuff that have been set up. The resolution of the Doctor's not death. And the setup of this thing of what is the question that the Silence, for whatever reason, don't want. They don't want it to be asked. And I guess that is Dr. ... who? As in, who is the Doctor? So I really enjoyed that episode. It's probably not in my top of the series, just because I think last series, just all the puzzle pieces just fell in so nicely together. I really didn't have too many questions after series 5 ended, other than what the Doctor himself said. Like they solved the answer of what was the crack, what was causing it, which is the TARDIS exploding. But at the end of series 5, he asked, well, who was controlling the TARDIS, and who was doing this and who was doing that? Like, we still need to find these out. And honestly, even at the end, in the series finale, I still wasn't sure, did we get the answer to that? And it was pointed out to me in the comments that, the Silence was controlling the TARDIS. But I was like, how? Why? What? I just, for me, this finale didn't, all the pieces of the puzzle didn't come together as seamlessly as the last series. And I think even though I really loved the wedding of Riversong, and of course the Tesselecta, some of those elements just kept it, just being, just underneath. But I, again, still really loved it. I really enjoyed a closing time. Just the dynamic of the Doctor and Craig and the baby, and just figuring out what the mystery was about. And it was kind of nice to see the Cybermen, but have the Cybermen issue not be so dominant. I mean, they were the reason, they were the factor, but I like that the scale wasn't this grand thing, because I think we had so many other grand scales. I just like that it was really a self-contained Cyberman story, where they were the cause of the problem, the root of the problem, but that it wasn't planet-wide. It was a locally contained problem. I love the dynamic of Craig and the Doctor, so that was a really enjoyable episode. And then again, I still really liked these 3 episodes, but they are at the bottom of my spectrum, the lower end, because I still did like them. Was the Flesh 2-parter, which had some really great characters and some really fascinating ideas, but I just, for all the reasons that I said at the time in my commentary, after episode commentary, just some of the philosophies just kind of got a little muddled, I think. But I really did love seeing double Doctors. So you have to love it for that, right? I liked Night Terrors, but honestly, I could have done without it. I would rather have seen an episode, again, with Amy dealing with all the crap that she'd been put through. I don't even know that you need an episode dedicated to that. You could have a storyline going along where she is also dealing with it. And Rory. I don't want to leave Rory out of that, because he was also the father of a daughter that got taken away from him, and he didn't get a chance to raise her. They both didn't get a chance to raise her. So, while I liked Night Terrors, if it had been replaced with something else, I don't know that I would have missed it. Let's put it that way. Still freaky as hell. I don't want to see those damn dolls ever again. Nope. So yeah, so many episodes to really love in this series. I really didn't dislike any of them. I thought it was a really good run. And as usual, the production, the music, the sets, all of that continues to be top notch. I think they do such a great job with practical effects and makeup. It's really great. Yeah, I think sometimes the elements like cinematography and things, you just don't spend a whole lot of time talking about it. But in particular, the God Complex, which was really specific and meant to evoke a certain visual language. It's meant to be very claustrophobic, meant to be very repetitive, looping, very disorienting. I thought they did such a great job. And every now and again, I think sometimes with things like soundtrack and sets and costumes and all of that, when they're really, really good, sometimes you don't notice them because you're just so, they're supporting the larger story, and you get so wrapped up in the story that, you maybe don't take the time to go, oh, and what a lovely wig that was. Because it was so integrated in the story, it doesn't stick out. But, every now and then you get something that is just so good that you're like, wow, that's some really great cinematography. That, costume is amazing. The makeup is amazing. And I think that this series had a lot of that. So yeah, just another series I really enjoyed. Maybe not as seamless as the last series, though I don't know that they intended for it to be. I think there were threads that they needed to wrap up from series 5, and then sort of new concepts, and then telling River's story. We had like a couple of different threads running throughout this series, whereas last series was a little more homogenous, I guess. Self-contained. I think my natural instinct is to compare it to last series because they are so connected and because the cast is at least consistent and similar, but it really was its own animal. I do believe that they've introduced issues that will be explored in the following series. As I said in the beginning, I'm on episode 4 of series 7. This has not been brought up again yet, really. But I think that closing thing in the series 6 finale of, well, who are you? Who is the Doctor? I think that maybe that is a little seed that's being planted that may come into play in the series to come. But I do believe that with this series, they've kind of wrapped up any remaining threads from series 5, and that we're kind of going to go on from here. I didn't see any other sort of launching threads that are going to take us into the next series. So as I have already started to go through it, really interested in what direction they're going in. So I'm excited to bring you those episodes. I am really enjoying them, but I do feel like there wasn't any kind of roadmap sort of laid out for them, at least not now at this point that I can see. So I'm really excited to bring you the Series 7 episodes. All right, guys, that is it for me today. I had a lot of fun looking back onto Series 6 with you guys. Feel free to leave your comments below. I will be looking at them at some point. I can't promise when, but I will be looking at them some point. Let me know what you thought of this series. Any further thoughts on the episodes, the characters, the direction that it took. Anything you want to talk about, let's talk about it. Thanks so much for watching it with me, and I will see you in Series 7. Thanks, guys. Bye. But last season, and it's difficult for me right now to separate Series 6 with where I am so far with Series 7 because I can't get into it. I have to leave it at Series 6, don't I? Dang. Damn it. For me to, I don't know what I'm saying. I'll say a little bit more. Oh, I got the hiccups now. Oh, no. I'm going to try to speak sentences between my hiccups. Otherwise known as talking. What was that? It was like a burp. Did I even start this? Oh, thank God.